this is First Take. I'm Molly Karam here in Bristol. Your boys on the road. Stephen A's in New York. Max is in LA. What's going on, guys?
What's going on, y'all? How you doing? How you doing? Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. What's going on, gray bearded man?
Oh,
what's
Lord.
going on, gray bearded man? How you doing?
So much great NBA action from last night. A lot to talk about.
No question.
Max Kellerman, I owe you an apology.
Yes.
I owe you an apology.
What?
Evidently, I am having a profound effect on you because every time I see you, you look like you're getting a little bit more gray. Are you okay?
Wait, in the
Are
beard?
you okay?
In the beard? Here's the question.
The hair looks a little gray here, Max. It looks a little gray.
Well, listen,
You
I am
all right?
going gray. The question is, do I go all gray before you go bald? That's the contest.
Oh, God.
I think I'm going to beat you there, Max. I
don't know.
But I'm going to have a George Jefferson look before I go completely bald. I'm just warning you.
That's neck and neck right there. Photo finish.
Shots already fired. All in
Let me
good
drop
fun,
the
though.
subject. Let me drop the subject.
Yeah, let's work, gentlemen. Coming up, also, maybe the best defensive player in next week's NFL draft is here. Jonathan Allen will stop by. He'll tell us why Nick Saban turned down his mama's home cooking. It's a good story. But let's talk a little playoffs. So the champs defending their throne, taking a 2-game lead over the Pacers, giving them a 95% chance to win the series, according to BPI. LeBron James is feeling good about the direction his squad is headed.
We're right there of what we know we can become, and we figure it out. So, like I told you, I'd much rather have an 18-point lead than not have a lead at all. And we make plays down the stretch to win a ball game, and in the postseason, that's all you can ask for. But we're right there on turning the switch on what we really can become.
Turning the switch. So when he says they're getting closer, what are they getting closer to, Stephen A?
I think what they're getting closer to is losing another NBA Finals than anything else. I don't know what the hell LeBron James is talking about, and it's almost sacrilegious, Max, for me to take that position. He's a 3-time champion. He's been to the Finals 7 times. He knows basketball inside out, a brilliant basketball mind. But first of all, the level of competition he's going up against gives him no indication about where they're arriving to, number one. Number two, giving up huge leads and ultimately finding yourself in dogfights certainly don't help the situation. If you look at what transpired last night, Max, just think about this for a second. If Nate McMillan didn't have to put Lance Stevenson on Kevin Love, would we be saying this? If Kyrie Irving didn't get irritated by Lance Stevenson and ultimately decide to give it to him, and Jeff Teague, by the way, en route to a game-high 37 points, just validating yet again that he is the bona fide closer for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Are we having this discussion? LeBron James played well, had 6 turnovers in the first half, but he still played well. He's LeBron James. He's the best in the world. But this is no indication that, oh, my goodness, we're right there. Right there to what? I'm not worried about them coming out of the East, and I want to be consistent with that point. But at the same time, what do you mean right there? I didn't see it. I don't see it now. A matter of fact, I think they're making games much, much harder than they should be. That's what I take from it, Max.
Well, you know what he means by right there. Right there being as good as they can be. Right there means getting out of the East and getting beaten down in the finals. Listen, it's not LeBron's fault that the Golden State, look, if he could do it this year, oh, my God, then he's really put himself back in that Jordan conversation. If he could overcome that Golden State team, I don't see it, you don't see it, most don't see it at this point. But closer to what? Closer to getting out of the East. He's closer to getting out of the East. That was a mostly health, Stephen A. That was a mostly dominant performance by Cleveland last night till they started playing ISO late in the game, got a little sloppy, let them back in the game. But mostly, that was them starting to fire offensively on all cylinders and defensively play just well enough that they're not going to get upset before the finals. And if you want to talk about what indicated that, I think there was no better example than that inbounds play. It's going to be on everyone's highlight this morning, where LeBron sets an off-ball screen by the free throw line, and it frees up Kyrie Irving under the basket for a chippy. When you have the best player on planet Earth doing things like that, setting a kind of unselfish team ball attitude, and you have the kind of talent they have, then they're offensively, they're basically unstoppable. The problem is their defense is not going to be good enough to contend with the Warriors' offense at all. The Warriors' offense is going to shred their defense, but the Warriors' defense is going to be better than theirs. So they're closer to getting to the finals, Stephen A. You're absolutely right about Lance Stevenson, and you're putting him on Kevin Love. It's a mismatch. But when Kevin Love is rebounding, outletting, and hitting threes, which doesn't have to be just because Lance Stevenson's on him, boy, the Cavs offense, you really can't stop their offense. You can't stop their offense. The defense, the problem is, can't stop anyone else. And so they're closer to getting shellacked in the finals.
Well, the only reason why I would somewhat disagree with you about that, Max, is that how do we know? Think about what Indiana Pacers squad that we're talking about here. This is why Paul George is complaining so much. He's basically saying to Larry Bird, excuse me, look, I want to leave. And we can talk about that a little bit later, but that's basically what he's saying. And part of the reason is because you're looking at the talent around you, and it's just not up to snuff. And so when I look at the Cleveland Cavaliers and I think about Kevin Love, who I genuinely like, and Kyrie, who I think is an absolute stud, I'm aware of what they can do, and they're champions, so they've proven it. But at the same time, there's only two guys that we can definitively rely upon in terms of giving you what they've got offensively, and that's LeBron and Kyrie. No matter the circumstances, Kevin Love, circumstances has to be a little closer to ideal. Some of those other guys have to be perfectly ideal in order for things to happen for them, and that's the way that I look at it. I'm not saying that. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One thing about that is it's easy enough for LeBron to try to impress upon his team, guys, we got to get it together, flip the switch, all those kind of things, whatever he's saying in the locker room to those guys or privately to those guys. It's another thing when those guys look at the Pacers and go, they can't beat us. Like the problem with the Cavs, and this is the problem with a lot of repeat champions or teams that make finals runs in consecutive seasons, and this would be their third trip to the finals, is they start looking around and not exactly complacency, but a sense of maybe arrogance. That's the hubris of a team like that, where they look around and they go, that team can't compete with us. We don't really have to start trying yet. And the problem is, of course, by the time they really start trying, it could be too late, particularly defensively, I think, for this team, Stephen A.
Well, I think where your point falls short is that if you are that way, then the game would be interesting from start to finish. When you're jumping out to 18 and 19-point leads, but then you're having defensive lapses, and they're consistent with the lapses that not only all of us have been talking about, but you've been complaining about as a team, then it becomes problematic because there's a level of consistency along with it that comes attached with what's ailing you as a franchise. These are the kind of things that they've been concerned about for months, and it's still happening. So even though they've made adjustments and LeBron says he's getting there, I'm saying, no, I don't see that, because as talent elevates, let me see it then. You know, we sitting there and we're looking at the ball in Paul George's hands. Let me see what you do if you go up against the Washington Wizards and you have Wall and Beal to deal with.
Yeah, I mean,
and Otto Porter and Bogdanovich. And, oh, by the way, Morris, who can hit some threes himself. I'm going to be interested in seeing what the mentality is strictly on the defense. I'm not worried about them offensively. I'm just talking defense. That's all I'm talking about here.
Listen, C.J. Miles hits that shot, and what we're talking about is, look at that, Indiana, lowly Indiana, took home court from the Cavs and then lost the competitive game 2. The reason you don't see them getting...
They just would have got it back into game 3
Sure,
or 4.
of course.
Yeah,
The Pacers aren't going to win this series, but the reason you don't see them getting closer to anything is because you assumed all along they're getting out of the East, as we all did, until in the second half of the season, with J.R. Smith back, whatever else it was, you were thinking, okay, here come the reinforcements. They never turned it on defensively, and so I thought, and there were plenty of others like me, who watching this Cavs team thought they just don't play enough defense. They might get knocked out before the finals. Last night I saw a confident, almost unstoppable offensive team for large stretches, and just enough defense to make me say, yes, now they're closer to their goal. At least they'll get to the finals.
Let's leave it there. Later in the show, we're talking a little more LeBron and his boy D-Wade comparing the King to Jimmy Buckets. What do you think? Is it fair to compare Butler to LeBron? Go on Twitter now and vote. We'll get into that a little bit later in the show.